Derailleurs. They're great when they work, they suck when they don't. Yeah, so I've got my bike up next to me on the stand over here, and today we're going to be talking about gravel derailleurs. So a couple of months back I took a nasty little slip on some wet pavement, and maybe in that intro reel you would have seen a few scratches up on the side of this derailleur that I've got up on my bike. And at first I thought I had damaged the derailleur and I would need to replace the whole thing. Some closer inspection later on revealed that that was only a bent hanger, and I could easily swap that out and not have to replace the whole derailleur. But in that time of not knowing what's going on, I did do a lot of research on the different gravel derailleurs, specifically for Shimano, on the market. And you know what I found is that there's not a lot of side-by-side comparison, and that's exactly what I want to cover in today's video. So we're going to talk about the different Shimano gravel specific derailleurs. So that will cover the whole GRX lineup, but I'm also going to include in this video the Ultegra RX derailleurs, because I felt that that also fits in very well in a side-by-side comparison with the GRX derailleur. So I hope you find this useful, and then if you do want to check out a little bit more detail, all the comparisons I'm going to mention in this video will also be listed in my blog post. So be sure to check that out. That's going to be in the description of this video, and there you will find all the side-by-side comparisons that I'm going to mention throughout today's video. So with that, let's dive into the specifics on all those different derailleurs. We're going to start things off by briefly mentioning all those different derailleurs that you find in the GRX lineup. So this specific derailleur that you see over here, this is the GRX 812. Now the electronic version of this will then come in at the GRX 817. Then you get two other GRX derailleurs in that lineup as well. That will be the GRX 810 and also the GRX 815. And then the two Ultegra derailleurs that I want to mention, those will be the RX 800 and also the RX 805. Alright, so let's quickly mention the differences between those derailleurs. Now, this specific derailleur, let's start with this as 1x specific. Now, I say 1x specific, but I'm pretty sure you can also build a very nice wide 2x system, but you are going to have to be careful about the total capacity when it comes to a derailleur like this when running it on 2x. Now, what is total capacity? Basically, I'm going to put that formula for the calculation down there. It's if you subtract out your front tooth chainring with your smallest tooth chainring, and then also you take the differences between your cogs on your cassette. In other words, the biggest cog minus the smallest cog. You add those two differences together. That is the total capacity of a derailleur. Now you got to make sure that whenever you are going from a 1x specific derailleur like this over to a 2x system, that you're not exceeding that total capacity for derailleur. Now, popping up on the screen right now, you'll see the 812 side by side with the 817. And if you go down to the total capacity column right there, you can see that both those derailleurs come in at a total capacity of 31 teeth. So make sure when you're following that formula that I showed that you are not exceeding a 31 tooth gap when you combine the front chain rings with also your rear cassettes. Right, then on the other side of the spectrum with the GRX 810 and 815 derailleurs, there you'll see up on the screen right now that the total capacity is actually much higher, and hence they are better suited for that 2x setup. I list there on my data table that you can also run them as a very limited or more compact 1x setup, and that's obviously going to be dependent on you having the right chain ring in the front. If you are going to go 1x, that you know that you at least have the gearing that you need to get up hills, and obviously that you're not spinning out completely on the downhills. So that's a quick side-by-side of the 810 and the 815, and then for the RX 800 and RX 805, you'll see that their total capacity comes in pretty much similar to those two GRX ones. This one at 39 tooth for both of those derailleurs. They're also specifically 2x setup, but again, probably would be able to get away with a 1x setup that's fairly limited. Looking at the next side-by-side comparison, it's now important to note that the biggest size of your rear cog will definitely have an influence on what type of derailleur you would require. Now obviously this cassette that I'm running here is an 1142 cassette, and hence if you look at the comparison that will pop up on the screen right now, when you look at the GRX 812 and the GRX 817, those maximum cogs that are allowed on the rear sprocket is actually set at a minimum of 40, so I can run an 1142 cassette on this one, or as on this one the 1142 cassette. So basically what that means, if you look at those exact cassette numbers as shown in that table, that means that you're looking at either the XDR one, if you've got $200 or $280 to go and spend on a cassette. You've got the M8000, that's your XT cassette, and then also the M7000. Be sure that when you are looking to run a very wide cassette like this, then obviously the 812 and the 817 would be your two go-to derailleurs. That is because of the cage arm length there, and obviously the different types of cassette options that you can run. Over on the 810 and 815 side, there you can see now you're looking at a maximum tooth sprocket on your rear cassette that only stretches up to 34 teeth. And so that is why those derailleurs are better suited for the 2x setup. So because you're only getting that range from an 11 up to a 34 at a maximum, your cassette options are much more restricted. And you can see up on my table right now, you're looking at an 1130, an 1132, and 1134 tooth cassettes with those different derailleurs. If you're interested in running a very wide cassette, then I would say that 1134 would be your two best bets. There you get the HG 800, that's the Ultegra equivalent, or the HG 700, that is your 105 equivalent. So do check out those two cassettes if you're in the market for a fairly wide 2x setup, and then you can still run your 2x chainring in the front. So that's definitely a distinction between the 812 and the 817, which is 1x specific, and then your 810 and your 815, which is more 2x specific, and that primarily has to do with the length of this cage and also then the cassette options that you can run with those different derailleurs. Then if I just throw in quickly the Ultegra into the mix as well, you can see one small little difference with this one is that it does also run only up from an 11 to a 34 tooth on that configuration, but there is a slight difference in that the minimum that cassette can go is actually 28. So unlike with the other two where you only could run it up as a minimum of 30 on your higher sprocket, this one does go up to 28, which means it gives you one more cassette option, making it slightly more road applicable, because that is very much that 1128 tooth cassette, very much more a road type of cassette, but it's good to know that that is in the mix as well. Right, so there you have it. That was a quick side-by-side comparison of all those different derailleurs better suited for gravel riding, specifically if you are in the Shimano ecosystem. So I hope that this information can just make it that little bit easier next time when you're in the market for a derailleur to find what you're looking for, and just help to bring all that information together in a nice condensed way. If you did like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to our channel. There'll be plenty more gravel related content here on Mountain Road Ride. Until then, I'm Vian. See you next time.